Okay, so in this second and final screencast video lecture on concepts from feminist theory or the unit on feminist criticism, I would like to start by referring to where I ended last time with phallogocentric thinking. And so phallogocentric thinking is a way of thinking or a system of thinking that is aligned with what we're referring to as patriarchal ideology. And phallogocentric thinking operates under the premise or the assumption that there are fundamental, essential, basic, or what those in philosophy refer to as ontological differences between men and women, which is to say, differences in being, differences that, according to phallogocentric thinking, are crucially important to the way that we understand ourselves, the way that we understand society, the way we understand truth, beauty, justice, what is right versus wrong, and so on and so forth, right? And so, as Tyson says, much of Anglo-European civilization or Western civilization is founded on phallogocentric thinking. And as I tried to demonstrate and argue in the first screencast video lecture, as you can see from the statements made by the group of esteemed, powerful, and highly influential men that I referred to yesterday, the idea that there are fundamental differences between men and women holds true. It has a certain degree of consistency if you look at traditions of Western thinking, Western philosophy, political theory, theology, and so on and so forth. And much of phallogocentric thinking or patriarchal ideology is structured in accordance with what we'll refer to as binary oppositions in the unit on deconstruction. And you notice that based on those statements by famous and influential and powerful men, the idea of difference between men and women seems to be crucially dependent upon this notion that men are more human than women, right? That women are defined and represented and thought of as animals by degrees. And part of the reason that that these men, refer to women as more animal than human, which is to say inferior to men, is because a story that has been told over the past couple thousand years that men are in firm possession of this thing called reason that allows men to transcend the realm of instinct, of passion, emotion, appetite, the so-called lower half of human nature. And it is a power, it is a capacity that permits them to be able to discipline and domesticate and control the animal part of human nature, that frees up, the time, the energy, and the intelligence to develop what we refer to as society, culture, civilization, science, what have you. Okay? Uh, and this is a story that has a tremendous amount of staying power. And it is a story that structures what Tyson refers to as habits of seeing, which is to say, a way of looking at life that uses male experience as the standard by which the experience of both sexes is evaluated and judged. And remember, for Tyson, habits of seeing uh, are a function of patriarchal ideology in the way that it both unconsciously and consciously uh, structures how it is that we see or conceptualize ourselves, others, reality, the world. Okay. And so, what is feminist criticism? I really like Tyson's definition. It's about as succinct and powerful and clear of a definition that I've ever run across. And so she says that broadly defined, feminist criticism examines the ways in which literature and other cultural productions uh, reinforces or undermines the economic, political, social, and psychological oppression of women. And so it helps us understand how it is that literature uh, reinforces patriarchal ideology, traditional gender roles, or undermines it, calls it into question, criticizes it. Okay. And notice she also refers to other cultural productions. That could mean a whole number of things. It could mean a sitcom, popular entertainment, music, advertising, any aspect of culture, which is to say the sphere of ideas, uh, the sphere of values, what have you. Okay. Really important concept for feminist criticism or feminism, feminist theory is the idea of a patriarchal woman. And so here's my definition of a patriarchal woman. Tyson has her own, and it's similar. I just read out mine. So a patriarchal woman refers to a woman who has internalized patriarchal ideology and, by logical implication, traditional gender norms or roles. Okay. So that said, patriarchal ideology functions, albeit largely unconsciously, as the basis of one's identity or self conception, thereby regulating one's desire, behavior, and thinking, as well as one's comportment towards others and society. So, a patriarchal woman refers to someone who has internalized patriarchal ideology, by implication, traditional gender norms. This idea that there are fundamental differences between men and women, right? Which is to say, a patriarchal woman is somebody who has internalized uh, and has adopted a certain type of uncritical faith in the truth value of the stories that men in positions of power have traditionally told about the fundamental differences between men and women. That those differences are somehow grounded in biology, right? And cannot be transcended or changed by any means. Patriarchy, another important concept, and this is my very, very succinct definition. The society that is either exclusively or predominantly or in the main ruled by men. And one of the many objects or objectives or goals of feminist theory is to call on the question the legitimacy of patriarchy and the stories uh, that it tells about the fundamental differences between men and women. What is sexism? Well, I mean, first of all, and one can say that patriarchal ideology and uh, uh, this story or set of stories that have been told over the past couple thousand years about the differences between men and women. Those stories are basically sexist in terms of their first premises and the assumptions they make about the differences between men and women. And basically, if you would like to define sexism, uh, it refers to the belief that men are intellectually superior to women. Biological essentialism, another important concept for feminism. Uh, so this is the idea that sex is destiny, not sex as in intercourse or the act of sex, but biological sex. Uh, the uh, the parts that you're born with. Um, uh, so it's the idea that biology fundamentally determines one's human potential, what it is that one is capable of doing, right? And that biology uh, it basically writes a script for us, right? It determines our potential one way or another, whether we're male or female. Yet another idea that has a lot of staying power, right? Uh, and is crucial to reproducing men's power over women over the course of the past couple thousand years in Western civilization. An idea that still needs to be questioned and examined and thought through with a certain degree of critical intelligence and imagination. Sex, another important concept, simply refers to one's biological identity as male, female, or as the case may be, intersex, or it refers to the genitalia one is born with. Gender refers to one's social cultural conditioning as masculine and or feminine. Okay, so biology, which refers to the parts that we're born with, or either male, female, or intersex, uh, that's a crucially and importantly different thing than gender. Uh, Biology is something that cannot be changed, right? Uh, Whereas gender is something that can be changed gender is fluid. Gender is a function uh, of society uh, and culture. And human societies can change under certain circumstances, as history amply and fortunately attests to. Uh, we live in a society that's still reeling from the legacies of slavery, which is to say, the legacy of certain ideas about the differences between uh, white people of European descent and black people. Uh, the words white and black and our understanding of this thing called race. Uh, this has changed because men and women, right, both white and black, have banded together in solidarity in movements like, for instance, the civil rights movement to contest the dominant stories that are told about something like race. Well, that's the same logic applies to gender. Uh, what it means to be male or female, what it means to be masculine or feminine, these things have changed over the years because of feminism, because of social movements. And people have shown that we have the power to be able to change culture, right? To change the meaning of words, to change our values and priorities, right? To change ourselves and our society and consciousness for the better, which is why the distinction, the conceptual distinction that feminists make between sex and gender is so crucially important to the project or projects of feminism. Final concept that I'll be talking about today is social constructionism. I just want to briefly define it in my own uh, words for y'all and say a few things about it. So, social constructionism refers to a body of thinking in the humanities and the social sciences that conceptualizes identity and meaning as a social process, right? Rather than something that can be explained or understood as universal truths grounded in the order or nature of things. Okay, uh, so think about, for instance, the statements made about the difference between men and women by, for example, Aristotle. Aristotle's thinking, in a time and place, 2,000 years ago, or over 2,000 years ago. And so social constructionism wasn't around then. In fact, it's a relatively recent uh, movement in thinking that started in universities in the United States, Europe, all around the world, just a couple of or several decades ago. And he understood every aspect of reality as grounded in a biological or physical reality, right? It was grounded in the nature of things, right? So for Aristotle, uh, identity and meaning was fixed by the order of things and could not be changed. So one's biological identity as male or female meant for Aristotle that men were in possession of this thing called reason that allowed them to be able to transcend their animal instincts, the realm of appetite, passion, so on and so forth, to free up the intellectual space to be able to build, organized and highly ordered societies, cultures, civilizations, right? Whereas, for Aristotle, as far as he understood it, women didn't seem to be in possession of reason quite to the extent that men did. Now, that's something that más o menos, right, or more or less, he assumed to be true, right? So this notion that things like identity, meaning, reality uh, are things that human beings can shape through a process of debate, deliberation, social consensus. This isn't something that yet emerged for somebody like Aristotle, right? And so social constructionism refers to this crucial sense that people working in the sciences or the social sciences and the humanities have developed over the past several decades, that that human beings can change themselves, right, through the order or the realm of culture, which is mutable, which is to say, not fixed, right? And that through culture or through social processes, human beings can transform human nature, right? And by extension, human societies.